Sorry about that, guys. From steam off. Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Samach Aleph and קידושין. We learn for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Tzim Batzir Rav Shapiro. 3 words. The last 3 words on Samach Hamid Beis. We were just discussing about the man says, "Hey, if I marry you, I'll marry you on the condition. Will you marry me on the condition that I'm going to show you this big piece of land that I have?" Well, if he's got the land, if he's really got it, if it's his, then they're married. But if he just says, "Well, there's a lot of land out there in Kansas, if it doesn't belong to him, that doesn't do anything." Okay, now the Gemara says, "Well, here, let me ask you something. Gabe Hegdish, the last 3 lines on the last 3 words on the page. Gabe Hegdish, when it comes to Hegdish, there's a special rule. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, when there was a Yovel, a Makdish today, if you sanctify your field to the Beis Hamikdash, at the time of this Yovel, and now you want to redeem it, you want to get it back. So there's a fixed amount. It doesn't go by the current assessment of the real estate assessor at that time, but it goes according to a fixed formula. No saying the Zera Chomer Sa'orim, right? Chamishim shekel kesef. You give 50 shekel kesef for every area of land that you would need a chomer, which is a large amount of barley seed to plant. In other words, an area that could take a chomer of barley seed that you can plant in there, which you can plant an area that big. You pay 50 shekels for every area that you have. In other words, if you have 20 areas like that, so you'd pay 1,000 shekels, right? It depends. You pay 50 shekels for every area that can take a chomer, which is a large measure of barley seed. Let's say within that field, though, there were some ravines 10 tefachim deep, or rocks 10 tefachim high. As we'll see, where it's hard to plant there. You don't count that. That's not counted. But if it's less than that, if it's a small, you got a field that's got some slopes and some risings, places go down, places go up. If it's a small, less than 10 tefachim, you count it in. It doesn't. You don't deduct for that. But if there's a ravine 10 tefachim deep or a rock 10 tefachim high, then it's not counted. Okay, so you don't say that you were not makdish those areas that were 10 tefachim high or deep. They weren't included with the Arab, but they should be kaddish by themselves. Why isn't that an area? In other words, you say it's not counted with this area that needs 50 that needs a chomer of Sa'orim planted in there. But so you say that's not included. So why not count it by itself? They should be kaddish by themselves. That should also count. These are small areas, so it wouldn't require a base core. That means a chomer is like a base core. That's that amount of seed. They wouldn't require so much. For a minute, we learned it doesn't make any difference how much you use it. You do it proportionally. Sodom. Why does the pasuk say soda? If we would just say a seed of chomer, that amount of seed, which is a base core of barley seed for 50 shekels, that's only if you did an area, if you were makdish an area that big. What happens if I made a smaller area, an amount that would only take a lesach? A lesach is a half a base core, half a core, right? Half a core. A core is like you see 30 saw. Lesach is 15 saw. A chatzi lesach, or a half a lesach, which would be 7.5 saw. What about a saw or a tarka, which is a half a saw? That's 3 kav, trei v'kav. 3 kav, there's 6 kav in a saw. So let's say it's a half a saw, or chatzi tarka, or half of that. Half of 1.5, which might be like I guess 0.75 to 0.75 of a tarkav is a half a saw. A chatzi tarkav would be 1.5 kav, which would be a quarter of a saw. Afila rova, or even a quarter of not only a half a kav, but even a quarter of a saw, and even a smaller amount. So how do you know that it's either half or 3/4 of a tarkav? Would be half a saw, right? Chatzi tarkav would be half of that, so that would be a quarter of a saw. Afila rova, even a rova, which would be maybe even a rova of a saw, or a rov of a kav, even a small amount, even a rov of a kav, because you already talked about a rov of saw. Chatzi tarka would be a quarter of a saw, so rova maybe is rova of a kav. How do you know any amount? You do it proportionally. So what's the problem? Why do you say that if you have a ravine 10 tefachim deep or a cellar 10 tefachim high, that doesn't get included in the amount that you're measuring for the 50 shekels? It should be counted by itself. We're talking about ravines that are full of water. They can't be planted at all, and therefore they don't go into the measure at all. Those aren't counted. When you redeem it, you only redeem it according to. Now, if you sell a field to somebody and you want to buy it back or whatever your deal is. But if you're makdish a field, the Torah gives a specific formula: 50 shekels for every area of a core, which is like a chomer, which is the amount that you can plant 50 shekels for an area in which you can plant a core of barley seeds. And proportionally, if it was more or less, we do the same thing. The economic to some, because it says if it was a ravine or a deep ravine or a high rock, it's just like a rock, you can't plant anything on a rock. The same thing, you can't plant in a ravine if it's full of water. If it's not full of water, you could plant it. It's not maybe easy, but it could grow there. But if it's water, not. So why do you say that if it's 10 tefachim high or 10 tefachim deep and it's full of water, and if it's a rock 10 tefachim high or a ravine full of water, that's why it's not included. So what does that be 10 tefachim? Any amount if it's full of water, no good. Those are called basins in the land, or shedudar mikvah. If you have like a rock which is less than 10 tefachim high, that's not considered to be separate from the field, like a separate ravine or a separate rock. Those are like crevices in the land. Every land is not all lands are perfectly lined out like a football field. They have crevices and heights and valleys and things like that. They're small. They're included in there. So that's all by being makdish. By being makdish, we see that if it has water in there, then it does not count it. But if there's no water in there, even if it has crevices and ravines and rocks, it's included. By mecher, when it comes to a sale, I'm selling you a base core, the same equivalent amount of offer of land. Vayisham, we said that's like 75,000 square amas. Vayisham, and the Kama Mukaman, it had some deep ravines there, or rocks and tefachim high. It's not counted. Okay. In other words, if I'm selling you a 75,000 square amma of land, I can't tell you, well, there's a deep ravine over here or there's big rocks. If there are big rocks or deep ravines, that's not included. I have to give you full 75,000. Even if they're not full of water. Why my time on a papa road? So she that's most of a sudden I just want to invest in a field, or one field. The looks like 2 or 3 different fields. It's got ravines here and rocks there. It's like separate fields. The person doesn't want that. So if I sell you a field of 75,000 square amas, you're expecting to get 75,000 amas of plantable, flat out field, not with ravines and valleys and hills. So that's when. So when it comes to a sale, that's not a good say. That's not included. When it comes to hektish, we said it would be included if it were not for the water in there. As if it would just be a deep ravine, but you could plant there, in hektish it would be included. When it comes to a sale, it wouldn't be included. Hachamai, what about being makdish and even kaddish and isha? Like kaddish and isha, we said if you tell a lady I'm marrying you on the condition that I have a land 75,000 square amma piece of land. Why? Is that like the hektish? Is that like hektish and it would be a good sale? Well, the mechmir, it's not a good sale if that's all he has and it's got rocks and ravines in there. Mustafa hektish, we probably compare it to hektish. The Omerla Natrich the Vizarna Masim says what's more like hektish, that it's okay as long as there's no water in there. It's what's the problem? That it's my field, I'm marrying on the condition I have this big field. It's got some ravines and valleys and hills. I'll take care of that. I'll plant it. I'll harvest it. And I'll bring it to you. It's not your problem. It's not like it's not like I'm selling it to you and you don't like that. I don't mind selling it. Maybe you don't want to get that. But if I'm marrying you based on the fact that I have a 75,000 amma field, what's it your problem if it's got some got some valleys and ravines in there? I'm the one who's planting it and I'll take care of it. So don't worry about it. So it would probably be okay. Says a Mishnah, famous Mishnah we have elsewhere in Shas also. Meir Makol Tanai we learn out from when Moshe made a deal with Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuben. We always call it the 2 Shvatim. It's really 2.5. Chatzi Chesed Menashe also were included. And he said, listen, they said, look, we want to stay here in Eretz Gilad, Averly Yarden, and we have a big herds and we want to use them, and we don't want to get our share in Eretz Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael proper, but rather Averly Yarden. So Moshe told him, if you fight with us and conquer the land, you can have it over there. If not, not. So Rav Meir says, Kol Tanai, if it's a condition that wasn't doubled, Sheina Tanai B'nei Ruvain, Eina Tanai Shneimar. It's got to be double. You have to say, listen, if you fight with me, you'll get it. If you don't fight with me, you don't. If you don't have a condition like that, it's not a Tanai at all. If I only say, oh, if you come and fight with me, you'll get the land. If I didn't double it up and say the negative part, if you don't fight with me, you won't get the land, then it's no condition at all, and you're going to get it anyway, even if you don't fight. That's what Meir says. Every condition has to be doubled up. If you follow me, then you'll get you can take it in Eretz Gilad. If you don't come armed with me and fight with me, you're not going to get it. It's got to be a doubled up. Otherwise, it's not a condition. It doesn't. Even the main condition doesn't apply. But Chanin says no. And Rashi adds on. It's not only that we'll run other terms there too. Number one, you have to say the condition first. You can't say if you fight. You can't say you'll get the land if you fight with me. You have to say if you fight with me first. If you fight alongside with me, you have to say that first. That's also learned out. And you have to say the positive before the negative. That's all 3 conditions you work out. But the main thing we're talking about is the Tanai Kofel. That's what Rabbi Chanina and the Wheel argues with. He says, no. He had to say it that way. You don't really need a double condition. Right? In other words, he holds just from if he would have just said, if Moshe would have just said, if you fight with us, you'll get the land. That's good enough. Why did he have to say that if you don't fight with us, you don't get the land? Why? Because they're entitled that the land was divided up among the 12 Shvatim, right? So there are 2 of the Shvatim, let's say, discounting the half a shape. Just the two Shvatim, they had part of it too. What he meant to say is that if he wouldn't have doubled it up, he doubled it up to tell you that if you don't fight with me, you'll still get your share in Eretz Yisrael. You'll still get your share in Israel proper. That's why he had to say it. In other words, according to Mechanim and Gamliel, even if you don't have to double up the condition, you just said if you fight with me, you'll get the land in Gilad. Which is understanding from that, if you don't fight, you won't get the land in Eretz Gilad any more than everybody else in Eretz Gilad. Whatever they conquered in Eretz Gilad would be divided up, but they want a bigger share. They want whatever share they were supposed to get in Israel, they were going to get. He wanted that to be transferred to Gilad. So Rav Chaim says the reason he said the negative, the doubling up, was not because if he didn't say it, it wouldn't have applied. The condition would be valid. If they wouldn't fight, they wouldn't get the land in Eretz Gilad anyway, because he said, if you fight with me, you'll get the land, which is understanding, which from that we understand that if you don't fight with me, you won't get the land there. The reason he said, if you don't fight with me, was to tell me, if you don't fight, you'll still get your share in Eretz Yisrael. Rav Chaim says, if he'd not said it, you could have understood they wouldn't get anything. If you don't fight with us, you won't get anything. You won't get anything in Gilad, you won't get anything here. That's what Chaim goes. So Chaim argues with the mayor. So the Gemara says, he's good point. Good point. Maybe that's why he would say it. No. If it's not coming to teach me, again, Rav Meir says it's coming to teach you have to every condition, whether it's a sale, a business deal, a wedding, whatever you're doing, a betrothal or a business, you always have to say, if you fulfill this condition, if you give me the $200, you're divorced. If you don't give me you're not divorced. You always have to have a doubling lashon. Meir learns that out from here. He says, if you're telling me that it's not going to teach me that, so Lichtov could have just said, Lo Yavru, if you don't pass over with us and fight with us, you'll get your share there. You'll get your regular share. What do you have to say, Be'eretz Canaan? Lo Yavru, you're saying that you would have thought you would have got nothing? Rav Chaim is saying, if you wouldn't have doubled up the lashon, you could have understood it to be that if you don't fight, you won't get anything. So that's what Chaim says. Says Rav Meir, what do you mean if you don't fight, you won't get anything? To counter that, the pasuk could have just said, if it's not coming to teach me tonight, it's only coming to teach me that, you know what, if you don't fight, you'll still get your share in Israel proper. So say lo yavru and you'll gather and you will inherit with everybody else, among everybody else. Why did he say Be'eretz Canaan? Those words are extra. Rashi says it's a miyat, but he also says it's an extra to teach me with tonight also. Come tell me that you're getting that. Now, this was a dialogue that Reb Chanina and Rav Meir had after the Mishnah, right? Not shown in the Mishnah with us. So therefore, the Mishnah, Shema Matai coupled also. Chanina says no. I might think that what does B'socha mean? In Eretz Gilad, meaning when they fought their way up the Ever Yarden through what's today Jordan, right? They came up around, through the Midbar, and they came up to Jordan. And as they fought through Eretz Gilad, so everybody would get a share equally in whatever they conquered. But maybe they get nothing in Israel proper. That's what I would say. That's why I would say Eretz Canaan. For a mayor, B'socha means wherever Bnei Israel gets, whether it's in Gilad or in Eretz Israel. Tanya Omer B'chamin Leo. Mashal, the Madam Domer. What's this comparable to? The Mashal of Moshe Rabbeinu that he says. What is that comparable to? By the way, just a little diuk that I noticed in my Gemara on an Aleph. I think it was on Amalf. I saw it somewhere. Yeah, in the Mishnah, Moshe Rabbeinu told them that tonight, if you fight with us, you'll get the land where you want it in Gilad. If you don't fight with us, not. It says that Shusach Moshe Rabbeinu, Olav Shalom. See that? Olav Shalom. Today it's very common that if everybody is Zichrono L'Bracha, Rachman al-Islam, when people die, you say Zichrono L'Bracha. It's also a nice thing. But I've heard many Rabbanim even call their rabbis Olav Shalom.
Yeah, I've heard
where
that Olav Shalom was restricted in the context was restricted to like Avraham Avinu and Moshe Rabbeinu. Everybody else.
What do they say about everybody else? Yeah.
It's restricted to pantheon of
in that time.
At that time.
And now
I grew up with it for
everybody, right? That's what I'm saying. But we the way we think now is that Shalom, that's for any common person. But you have to say Zichron Bracha. Yeah, the Bracha, and I say Shalom is very. You see here that Moshe Rabbeinu is Shalom, so it's certainly a respectful way to address it. Anyway. The mashal of what Moshe did, what's it comparable to? The man was dividing up his assets among his children before he died. Amar, Ploni, Reuben, the first son, Bini, Yeresh, son of Ploni, he'll get field number 1. Uploni, my second son, Shimon, Bini, Yeresh, son of Ploni, he'll get field number 2. Uploni, Bini, my third son, Yitin Masamzus, if he pays $200, the Yever Sadaplus, he'll get all of field number 3. In other words, if he does some extra effort, comparable to Bnei Gad, Bnei Ruvain fighting in Eretz Yisrael. Okay. V'im lo yitei, and if he doesn't work, if he doesn't give the $200 in this case, Yever Shemecha B'Shana Chasim, okay, he'll get his share in field number 3. In other words, field number 1 goes to Ruvain, field number 2 goes to Shimon, field number 3 would go to Levi, the third son. He'll get the whole thing if he pays $200. If he doesn't pay, he'll just get a regular share. Me garam lo lirshimach. What caused him to get what caused him to get the Yerusha with his brothers in the third field if he doesn't? Sharna chasim kefela garam lo. The fact that he doubled up and he said the negative part. In lo yite. In other words, Rav Chanina is going with this idea that Mechlal Heina Tashamei Alav or Mechlal Alav Tashamei. You do understand the opposite. You don't have to actually double it up and say it. But over here, why did he say it? He said it to tell you that he'll still get some share with his brothers. You might think that son number 1 gets field number 1. Son number 2 gets field number 2. Son number 3 will get field number 3 if he pays for it. If he would stop right there, you might say that he'll get nothing if he doesn't pay for it. He'll get nothing. No, so he tells you if he doesn't pay for it, he'll just get his regular share in field number 3. Says Gemara, that's not exactly like the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, we said that you would have a half minute. He says, why did Moshe double up? Because you might say that if they don't fight, they won't get anything at all. They doubled up tells you he wouldn't get anything in Gilad, he wouldn't get anything in Eretz Yisrael, and he wouldn't get anything in Gilad either, meaning everybody else is going to get a share in Gilad as they fought their way up there. Why shouldn't he'll also get a share? He would get nothing. If he doesn't fight, he won't get anything in Eretz Yisrael, he won't get anything in Gilad. It's mashma that the Fela helps him only for the Sharnachasim, not just for the not for his field, but for everything else. In other words, the Chasim God. Rashi says over here, take a look at Rashi halfway down. If he doesn't pay Yito, but also Sadak, I think he'll get just whatever he's supposed to get. He won't get if brothers number 1, number 2 each get a whole field, he won't get a whole field in number 3. They go by Ruvain, if you didn't double up, that's what it means to say that the comparisons that you might think that if he didn't double it up, they wouldn't get anything in Eretz Yisrael, and in Eretz Gilad they'll only get what's Magia Lahem for fighting with everybody else on their way up through Gilad. So this now the Gemara says, yeah, but it's not exactly the same. That's not. First we said in the Mishnah we said that you would think if he wouldn't have doubled up, they wouldn't get anything, nothing in Eretz Gilad or in Eretz Yisrael. It says Rashi going on in Rashi, Lo kan below kan. Become a shop Eretz Canaan. She'enei chaviv. They didn't want Eretz Canaan. They wanted Eretz Gilad. L'midiktani she'af mashma the kolshken. The she'af midiktani she'af mashma the chol shekain Eretz Gilad shebachruba. Not only in Eretz Yisrael won't they get anything, but they certainly won't get anything in Eretz Gilad. He says, I would think again. What was the lashon? Even Eretz Canaan they won't get, and certainly they won't get in Gilad. And here, now we're saying from the Moshe, we're saying, I'm seeing them Alma Kfeil Eretz Gilad Nami Yahani. In other words, they would think you get nothing. Migarmlo Alma Lo Hani Ella Eretz Canaan. The Balav Nami Avishakli Mashmiki and Eretz Gilad. And here it's from this example, it's Mashma Lo Hani Ella Eretz Canaan. The Balav Kfeil Nami Avishakli Mashmiki and Eretz Gilad. Because he said if he doesn't pay anything, he's just going to get what his brothers get. They'll just share with their brothers. It's mashma that he would get a share anyway. From the Mishnah was mashma that if it wouldn't be that Moshe doubled up, you would think that the Bnei Gad would get nothing here, nothing there. But over here, from this mashal that he's giving, again, look inside in the Gemara, back in the Gemara. Certainly. Certainly, they wouldn't get anything in Eretz Canaan, certainly not in Gilad. I'm like fail Eretz Gilad Nami Mani, and certainly wouldn't get anything in Eretz Gilad. What caused them to get a share with Achav? B'shar Nechasim. Fail Garma. I'm like fail L'shar Nechasim Udamani. Helps for the other Chasim, but not for the main one that he's dealing with. And as the main one he's dealing with, he'd get a share anyway. So Rashi goes on. Oh, he says, I'm like fail Eretz Gilad Nami Mani. The belav kveil nami avishakti mashim dim Eretz Gilad. It's mashma that in other assets they'll get their other assets anyway. It's mashma they would get their regular share in Gilad. So if it wouldn't be for the double lashon, you would think Rav Chanina says you wouldn't get anything in Eretz Yisrael. But from the Mishras Masha, they wouldn't have gotten anything even in Gilad, even a proportional share for fighting with them in Gilad. And from the Mashal, it's mashma they would get their share for fighting with Gilad. Hamakami the name Rav Meir Shapiro. In other words, in the Mishnah, before Rav Meir answered Rav Chanina and said, "What do you mean? If it's not teaching you the double lashon that you have need a kefil, that you have to have t'nai kaful, it could have just said v'nefsu b'sokachem. Why did it say Eretz Canaan? So before that, Rav Chanina assumed that the pshat Rav Meir is you need the whole pasuk to teach me t'nai kafel, including Eretz Canaan. Hamakami the name Rav Meir b'nefsuba. Halabasuk name Rav Meir b'nefsu. And this is so again. Rashi, take a look at Rashi at the beginning of the first wide lines, not the widest lines, the middle wide lines. They're here about 3/4 of the way down on the page. The comment Rav Meir imkain nichtav b'nefsu. Before Rav Meir said, according to you, Rav Chanina, it could have just said b'nefsu. Why did it say Eretz Canaan? Probably Sabra Chanina, the Kula Milsa, Darish Rav Meir, the Tanai Kafel, the whole pasuk goes for Tanai Kafel. Hilka Chomalei, Shilmolei, Kain Shekefel, Bar, Blash, Mash, Shapiro, Eretz Canaan, La Yidu. Because you Machabav Lem, the Mechlal Hain, Hain, Shamala, we would have understood one from the other. Being Lo Yav, Lo Tiknu Lahem, as Eretz Gilad. you might think that if they won't even get anything. When male the Eretz Canaan lo shakli, the law so there's a mixture. They didn't go. They wouldn't get anything in Eretz Canaan. And Eretz Gilad, since they didn't fight, they won't even get a share there. Ubraisa diktani the loahani kfela el Eretz Canaan. Amrav Chanina Basar the Amar Meir Nichtav Korban Echsel Lamali Eretz Canaan. Amar Chanina. So Chanina answered on this page near the top. What if Chanina answered? Litul chelik Eretz Canaan ahani. The low cost he had not written having been Eretz Gilad. In other words, after they had a shackle bataria, Chanina said, "Oh, had it not said Besochem, I would have said next Besochem means you only get Eretz Gilad." Rav Meir is learning out tonight from the extra words of Eretz Canaan. Rav Chanina said, without Eretz Canaan, I would have said that you still get a little share in Eretz Gilad, your proportional share in Eretz Gilad, but you want to get your whole share, the whole share that you would have gotten in Eretz Canaan, proportionally, that big share, you want to take Eretz Gilad for that. That you wouldn't have gotten unless you fight, right? But you would have gotten still the small share. So that, in other words, originally we thought Rav Chanina thought that you wouldn't get anything if you don't fight. And later on, in the Shaklataya, we see, when he answered Rav Meir, we see, okay, you wouldn't have gotten any share in Eretz Yisrael, but you would have still gotten your small share in Eretz Gilad, the same share that everybody else would have had in Eretz Gilad. You wouldn't got your whole share. You want to get all of Eretz Gilad as your share instead of Eretz Yisrael. That you wouldn't have gotten unless you have the Kefil Lashon. So it's not to teach me tonight, it's to teach me that they could that if they don't fight, they'll still get their share in Eretz Yisrael. But their share in regular share in Gilad, they would have gotten with everybody else. So now Rav Meir holds that you always have to have Tanai Kafel. You always have to say, if you do this, you'll get it. If you don't do it, you won't get it. Otherwise, you don't understand a negative from a positive or a positive from the negative. So now the Gemara is going to give a bunch of cases where we find throughout Tanakh that there is Tanai Kafel or there's not. And what is the other one? What is each going to do with the other? Bishlam Rav Meir back at the beginning of Bereshis, which can have this week's parsha. Bishlam Rav Meir, I need to see them low tative says, right? What did Cain say when he was upset? When God caught him, he says, "Im tative, if you do well, say, so you'll get rewarded. Im low tative, and if you don't do well, la pesach atas race. Sin is crouching for you at the door. You're going to be punished." So according to Meir, I understand why, because it says if you do good, you'll get rewarded. If you don't do good, you'll get punished. What does Chanina need a double lashon for? You don't need Tanai Kafel. You don't need to. You always understand. You understand. If you do good, you're going to get rewarded. Which we understand is if you don't do good, you're not going to. You'll be punished. Isn't it one understood from the other? Or according to Chanina, why did the pasuk say both? Pardon? Yeah. No. So it says in tativ says in low tativ. If you don't do good. La pesach chatas rebei, sin is crouching for you, meaning you're going to be punished. That means you'll be punished, but you're hinting at the answer. Because according to Chanina, what do you have to say both for? What do you have to say if you sin, right? If you don't do good, if you sin, you're going to be punished. Isn't it understood from the fact that we say if you do well, you will be rewarded? Doesn't that sound like if you don't do well, you'll be punished? It says no, it doesn't say that. I think if you do well, you're going to get rewarded. In low tativ, if you don't do well, low agra v'ladina, you won't get rewarded, but you won't get punished either. Maybe it's only one way. That's what says you have to have the double lashon. It's not. Yes, normally michal hena tashumay alav. I understand if I'll give you a divorce if you give me $200. That means if you don't give me $200, you're not going to be divorced, right? We understood it that way. That's what Chanina says. You don't need it tonight, couple. But Rav Chanina says. It's like Rav Chanina. So why do you have to say if you don't do well, you're going to be punished? The answer is I think if you don't do well, you won't get rewarded, but you won't get punished either. Kamashma, you will get punished. Bishlam Rav Meir, what did Avram tell Eliezer? If the girl wants to come, you're getting a daughter. He wants to get a daughter-in-law for his son Yitzchak, a wife for Yitzchak. So it says, if you do all this. And you go there, and they don't want to come with you. You're free from my oath that you took with me. Rav Chanina, what do you have to say? He said, you're taking an oath that you won't go to the B'nos Eretz Canaan. You're going to go to my family and get some. And if you do all that, and you'll be released from my vow. According to Rav Chanina, what do you need that double lashon for? If you do good, if you follow my instructions, you're forsworn. And if you don't follow, if you don't follow, as long as you follow, you'll be okay. If you don't follow, you won't be okay. Ella, you won't be you'll be violating the oath. I think let's say the girl wants to come, but her family doesn't want her to come with Eliezer. Maybe you got to force them. Kamashmala, no. He says in Lo Tzova, that they don't want to come. If they refuse to come, yeah, you're absolved of the oath. That's what he meant to say. In Lo Tova Isha, what is that? What is that necessary for? It's let's say the family wants that the girl doesn't want to come. Nice, but you should bring her balkocha kamashman. That you don't. If either the family doesn't want to or the girl doesn't want to, you don't force them. So, right? It says in Kelech Tiraka Ela Diilo Kafa La Bin Battles is Rashin Battle Ton Shmud Apil Yelech Takalaf Imiga Chloishim and Laskam. So that's what the psukim are necessary for from Chanina, because according to Rav Meir, it's obvious. You say, listen, if you follow the instructions, if you fulfill the oath, that's good. And if you don't fulfill the oath, you won't be absolved. But these words were necessary according to Chanina to tell you that you don't force the girl or the family. It says in Gemara Bishlam, Rav Meir we say, beginning of B'chukos says, if you follow in my statutes, you will get good. And B'chukos Timasu, if you refuse and you make light and you consider my laws repulsive, you're going to be punished, and you have the tochacha there. It says in B'chukos you have to start both with positive and the negative, according to Rav Meir. Rav Chanina and Megalio Lamali isn't one understood from the other. If you follow my laws, you'll be rewarded. If you don't follow, you'll be punished. Again, I think because you'll get blessings if you follow. If you don't follow my rules, you won't get a bracha, but you won't be cursed either. That's what I'm thinking. Mashmallah, know that you will be cursed. If you don't follow, you will be cursed. That's what finds it necessary. Im Tova Ushmatem. Now we're getting into Tanakh, right? Im Tova Ushmatem. This is right from Yeshayahu, the beginning of Yeshayahu. This is Chazon, right? The Chazon Yeshayahu. Im Tova Ushmatem. If you listen, and you'll be good. Im Tamoanu. If you refuse, Marisim, and you rebel against me, bad. Cherav Tuchlu. You'll consume the sword. What do you need to tell? Again, I think I might think that if you hearken to God's laws, you'll get good. If you refuse, lo tova below raw, you won't get any good or bad. Kamash Malan, no, that if you don't listen, you will get bad. Again, this is the same concept that we go through with Rav Chanina, that you need the double lashon to tell you that if you don't do good, you will be punished. My cherav tuchlu. What is that lashon of? You'll be consumed by the sword. Amarava, you will consume the sword. It's cherav tuchlu. Mashma achilasmu cherav nisman, that you're going to eat the sword. Amrava milcha gas, a coarse salt. Namadasari akusha, with stale barley bread, ubatzli, and onions. If you eat that, that's like eating a sword. Amramar pasporni chareva. If you have dried out, stale bread baked in a big oven with salt, and onions, is bad for the body as sword is. In other words, it just means that you'll be eating that kind of food will destroy you. It says, the man hasn't slept with you. So you haven't sinned, you haven't turned away. And you will be innocent, right? It doesn't say though, if you committed adultery, you will be killed. It doesn't say that. According to Panina, only says one way, because it's understood. If you didn't sleep with him, then you're innocent. Mashma, that if you did sleep with him, you're not innocent. El Rameir, Chinaki mibal. It should say Chinaki, because Chinaki is going on the next pasuk, saying that the next pasuk is V'at kisatis. If you did turn away, right? It should say Chinaki in that you'll be hung, you'll be hanged for that. It says it without a yud in there, indicating that the hay could be read both ways. If you are innocent, hinaki, and then chinaki, you will be hung. Akisatis, if combining with the next pasuk, if you did turn away and did sin, you will be hung. So Bishlam Meir of Siv, Hinaki. That's why it says that in that lashon of Hinaki without a yud, so it can go both ways. On the first pasuk, you're innocent if you didn't sin, and with the second pasuk, if you did sin, you are guilty. Why did it say Hinaki? Let it just say some other lashon. Right? What if El Chanina lo boy kfela? Just say, if you didn't sin, you're innocent. So say, if you're innocent, you will live, or some other lashon. Rashi says, just say some lashon. Why did it say Hinaki? Lumley is if nobody slept with you, you're innocent. Dim shachav, and if you did sleep, lo hinaki, v'lo hinaki. You're not going to be innocent. You're not going to be killed. El asir b'yama. You did some. It's not so bad. The adultery. You're not innocent, but it's not the end of the world. You're not going to be killed for a year. Kamash Mala, no, it tells you that to tell you that to understand that the chinaki is to tell you that if you did sin, you will be on Kamash Mala. Pardon?
Chenek. It's not Chenek they killed, sir. It's the Maya.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, well, it's like Chenek because the rope falls apart.
It has to do with
right. It just means to say, I don't think it doesn't mean literally Chenek, even though that's what she will get, but unless if she's on a rusa, it applies to a rusa too, gets skila, right? Normally a woman for a rusa gets skila, for a married woman gets chenek. But you're right. In this case, it's the water that's doing it, right? So you're right. It just means
part of the body.
Different part of the body, but it means it goes in it, right? Right. I think it just means. I don't think it means like literally. I don't think it means that's going to be the literal punishment, but it means it's the equivalent of that. It's a good point. Yeah. Visual man of siv. A man needs to be purified by the mechatos in the paraduma, and after he has to wait the third day. He gets sprinkled on the seventh day. It says and then on the seventh day he gets sprinkled again, goes to mikvah. It says and if he doesn't do that, lo yitar. So I understand according to Meir, you have to say it both ways. You have to say positive and negative. So, by the way, all these cases you see, we're not simply talking about deals, like a deal, getting a divorce or getting married or buying a piece of land or whatever, like Moshe Rabbeinu with that. But you learn out that, tonight call for any time when you make a condition, even when God's making conditions with us, right? So here it says again, and if he doesn't, then he won't be purified. What if you say it's obvious? If you purify yourself in the right way, then you're clean, and you could eat kachim again, etc. You can eat truma and kachim, and if you don't purify, it's obvious. So according to opinion, why do you have to say it? I might think mitzvah hazov b'shlishi b'shvi. The mitzvahs to get sprinkled on the third and the seventh day. By the way, there has to be a 4-day separation between two. If you got sprinkled once, that's good enough too. Kamash Malon, no, that's why you say if you don't get sprinkled on the third and the seventh, you're not Torah. You need 2. So that's what it's for. Plus it goes on. These are Torah Latame, Becheta B'Yom HaShvi. Tame Mashvi Lomali. Why do you say Becheta B'Yom HaShvi? Some of them mean Shlishi Lemute Sheni. Third day you exclude the second day. Shvi Lemute Shishi. In other words, you come out B'Yom Tara. You need a full 7 days of Tara. So maybe he's telling you need the third. The reason it says the third and the seventh is to tell me, it says if you say tell me Yom Shvi or the Gemara says the pasuk he's talking about here is a chita Yom Shvi, but we have that different. We have our Gemara has differently a different pasuk because he used that pasuk later on. But in any case, it says why does it say on the seventh day? Because you might think the second day means the third day, not the second day, and the seventh day, not the sixth day, because if you only have 6 days, you don't have you have less than the 7 days of Tara. The lemute sheish to come of Tara. The other the shlishi uvashmi. Let's say the third and the 8th day. So you have you had more than the 4-day minimum of separation. The kamafish meitar, but you have more days. I think it's okay. Kamash malan that we don't say that. No, that it has to be. You can't have more than the necessary days. The Lagos Ravi Shmina, the Abadi Shapardam. In other words, if you did it on the 4th and the 8th day, so there is a separation of 4 days, that's okay. You just delayed it right there. In other words, it's got to be in the 3rd and the 7th day. But if you don't know what day is the 3rd day, you're not sure. Let's say a week has passed, not 3 days have passed since you became Tameh, but rather a week has passed. That's okay too, as long as there's 4-day separation between the two sprinklings from the 3rd and the 7th. So the 4th and the 8th would definitely be okay. But you might think the 3rd and the 8th is also okay. We don't say that. What is that pasuk for? So that's not the way we have the gears. It's not what the Gra used before for instead of Bizar Tameh. The Argamara says what is that pasuk extra for? I might think, or Lamikta, she says, I make the Mikdash for Kachim, that you need it. Maybe you need the two. In other words, according to the Graz Mashra, that he uses, that he reverses the psukim. The first pasuk that he said that you need a separation of 4 days and not more. That's from Bechita B'Yom HaShvi. And now Bizar Torah Tam B'Yom HaShvi is to teach me. Maybe you might say these words are extra. Why? Because if we would only say, if we wouldn't have these extra words, you would say maybe you need two sprinklings for kachim. But for truma, one sprinkling is guf to eat truma, one sprinkling is also no. That both for kachim and for truma, you need a separation of 4 days. So you got to be sprinkled on the 3rd and the 7th. If the 3rd was delayed till the 15th, that would also be okay, as long as there's the 15th and the 19th. You have to have a 4-day separation between the two sprinklings. Tomorrow's daf is daf Samach Beis. That'll be on the podcast from the Mishnah on. And on Sunday morning, Mitzvah will start with the 5th line on daf Samach Gimel. Rav Meir. This is a case where Abai says, Rav Lezer and Rav Meir, Rabbi and Meir, they all hold the same idea. And he's supposed to bring proofs for each one. So we're starting on the 5th line, Rav Meir on daf Samach Gimel on Sunday. Shabbat Shalom. Stay safe to everybody. B'Surah Tovot.